Thank you very much, Dame Rafferty. This has been pretty enlightening. This is definitely better than reading off the website because you put so much life into this, and I think that you have contextualized it for us critically. And so it's the question and answer time, and we do have a couple of questions for you. And I'll just flag off while waiting for my colleague to also take over. And if there are questions from the audience, we will be asking you that. But one question that I would really like to ask is, was it smooth sailing? Was there no resistance? If there was resistance, what form did it take? And how was this addressed? Given that it was a pretty conservative arrangement structure that you had in place, how did you achieve this reform? If you could just tell us a little bit more about that.
There was a lot of resistance. It would be foolish to pretend otherwise. There was a very great deal of resistance. Generally, people don't like change. They like to stay where they are because they understand the system. So that's a hurdle in any sphere. But this was not welcomed. It was seen as yet another commission. It'll be big, it'll be unwieldy, it will have the great and the good achieving absolutely nothing on it. It wasn't welcomed by the profession. It had a very rocky start. In a sense, fortunately, it was a creature of statute. So there it was. It's a creature of the Constitutional Reform Act, and it was created in 2006. So the naysayers were landed with it. It wasn't going to go away. So they had to understand what it did, or at least they should have understood what it did. And then it got going. So unwelcome though it was, and rocky though its start was for far too many years, in my personal opinion, it was, unattractive word though this is, imposed upon the system, and it therefore, it had to work.
Thank you very much. And before I hand over to my colleague, I'd just like to ask another question. And that is that you actually had a very accomplished career as a barrister. And it would appear then that you went back to start from the, well, like the lower level of the bench. And is there something to be said for opening the silk to pursue careers on the bench from your experience? And my second question related to that is that, do you think that all silks should actually start from the High Court, or do you think that they could just get elevated to the higher level from your experience, your personal experience, and then the experience generally in the UK? What would you say to that?
It's, for a start, thank you very much for the compliment of saying I had a distinguished career at the bar. I think that our system predicates people who practice at the bar or are solicitors and who have no intention of doing anything else. That's what they like, and that's what they're going to do until, when they choose, they retire. There are others of us, I was one, I'm married to another one, who wanted to see what the bench would be like, sitting on it looking down, as opposed to standing in the well of the court looking up. Consequently, I became a recorder before I was made a QC. And I began to understand how the two systems, how the two jobs locked together to form the whole. Becoming a QC is not a necessary precursor in the United Kingdom to becoming a judge. It is true that the vast majority of High Court judges are QCs, but there are exceptions to that. But certainly on the circuit bench, it is nowhere near a necessary precursor and hasn't been for many years. So I don't think that I would espouse any system that saw the natural elevation of a QC, or even the eased elevation of a QC to the bench. I rather approbate the system as it is, that there could be twin tracks. One might go into silk, become a QC, as I did, and then decide to go on the bench. One might become a QC and decide to stay as a QC. One might decide not to apply to become a QC, or apply and fail, and stay in that mode until retirement, or from that position, apply for the bench. So I've always seen our system as shaped like a Y. So the stem of the Y, there's the bar and the solicitors, and then there's this part of the Y. This lot become silks, and some will become judges. This lot don't become silks, and some will become judges. And I quite like that. I think it's healthy, and I think it best serves all parties.
Thank you very much. Also, I'm sure you have some questions for Dame Anne.
Indeed, I have quite a few, and I'm just worried that she probably doesn't have that much time. But let me try and focus on what I think is the most important of the questions. I have the Chief Justice of Nigeria actually keyed into this, and I thank him as the host of this, and he's watching. And actually, this is good, because we're hoping we can get some comparative analysis and then impact our process. The Chief Justice of Nigeria sits on the equivalent of your Judicial Appointing Committee, that's the NJC, and it has 86% appointing powers into the NJC. Clearly, that is something to think about, and the CJN might want to ask a few questions. My question is, you talked about the self-examining process. In other words, an independent structure that examines whether or not the process is working. Now, let's drill down to a bit more detail. What sort of, I mean, having regard to what I said to you, the NJC having 86% appointing power by the Chief Justice himself, what sort of independent parallel examinating structure would you sort of propose?
We have a fixed group called the Work Psychology Group, which looks at how what we have in place is bearing down upon the candidates and the panel members and playing its part in the recommendation of strong candidates. We are very aware that a range of skills is necessary for us to form a decision which we can defend. The Work Psychology Group will look at how we treat people arriving for an interview, how we deal with them when we give them feedback if they have not succeeded. So what one might call some of the soft skills, but it will also look at how we phrase advertisements. It will have a look at how we appeal to or do not exclude those who are disadvantaged, etc., etc. We have our own, within the JAC, statisticians who regularly trawl through everything. I've never understood a word they say, so when they give their report, I just nod and try and look intelligent. But they will take apart everything that is said statistically. That is very valuable, because we will be challenged on our stats, and we stand a chance of defending ourselves. It would be odd to United Kingdom ears now to find the Lord Chief Justice having any input at all into appointments until one reaches the Court of Appeal, where he sits on the panel, and that's rather different, because the word independent is seared into us. So it would be quite hard to extrapolate for you, with your Chief Justice's input and his power, how to make our system translate into yours, or yours to absorb from ours. But in general terms, I've given you two examples, the Work Psychology Group and our own statisticians. We will take any input from any respectable body anywhere which better informs how we do things. and we will employ entities ad hoc to help us. For example, we've employed people to help us with how we train lay panelists. It's all very well, Osara, if I can use your first name, forgive me. It's all very well saying, you know, you want to have not only diverse appointments, but thus to achieve it, you want diverse individuals from diverse backgrounds sitting on your panels, but you need to know how to put the panel members in the strongest position to pull out from the process what might be difficult to pull out, and therefore we will run courses on how to do that. So the examination question answer to you is, we'll do anything to make our performance better. And we are constantly examining, constantly. It's one of the things of which, I expect you spotted it by now, I am most proud.
Yes, I can see that. And I have two of my lords actually on the panel. It may be that they might want to direct a question or two. I have quite a few, but I gave my word that I'll let you out at 11:58. We've got about 3 minutes more. I don't know if my Lord, Justice Augie, might want to put a question across, or Justice, my Lord Justice Oyewole. Otherwise, I would ask my next question. Right.
I'm going to speak later, so it's fine.
All right. Thank you, my Lord. All right. My other question, of course, again, is drilling down to detail. The composition of the JLC, obviously lawyers and non-lawyers, with non-lawyers having a majority. How did the bar receive that, and the judiciary, having especially the chairman being a non-lawyer?
Inimically.
Right. That's one word answer. And you say if there was no constitutional amendment, perhaps that would never have happened.
It would have been fought.
Right, right. The other question, very quickly, I think I've got 1 minute, is the issue you talked about on equal merits provision. Now, that's the merits in the system seems to be the driving force with everything you do. Now, do you, in spite of the system that you have judges who pass through that system, and yet the bar is dissatisfied with their performance?
That's, if I may compliment you, a very shrewd question, and I could take another half hour, but never mind, let's do what we can. One of the things that I think, and I know some members of the Commission think, is important, is not just to examine what the Commission does and constantly question and avoid complacency and strive to improve, but also to ask the question that an 8-year-old in the playground would ask, which is, have you got it right? So are you appointing judges who are good? When you've chosen them, are they good at the job? Now, England and Wales judiciary is independent. We have systems of appraisal in place for the lower levels of the judiciary, some recorders, some tribunals judiciary. We have none, as yet, for the High Court and above. So you can well imagine the prickling when someone says, jolly handy to know if the appointments are good ones. Erosion of judicial independence, run screaming to the hills. But in fact, upon examination, what is the problem? The JAC just wants to know whether it's getting it right so that it can get it even righter in the future. And what it doesn't want to do, and I think this is the danger point for misapprehension, is do that evaluation job itself. It wants the judiciary, within its own independence, to tell it whether the judiciary assesses the appointments as good. So there is no attempt at all, or even enthusiasm, for erosion of judicial independence. Quite the contrary. what the JAC would welcome is the head of a division saying the 2016 range of appointments was absolutely brilliant, every single one of them. The 2017, well, one of them caused a little bit of anxiety, but in fact is flourishing now. That's the kind of thing. So I think it's important, if I may respectfully say so, to distinguish which entity is going to be feeding back what I think is the very important information. Have you made the right choices? The proof of the pudding is in the eating. Can they hack the job when you've given it to them?
Thank you very much. I will pass over to Ayo because we're going to keep to time and we'll keep our words. It's now 12 o'clock.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Dean Rafferty. This has been a very interesting session. Thank you so, so much. I started off with the observation that I didn't think we could get a better person. And I think I am satisfied now that that was correct. And I want to imagine that everybody in the audience, the attendees, as well as the other panelists, would agree with me. I have the honor of again saying a very big thank you to you. Thank you for giving us your time. You were only going to give us 30 minutes, but it looks like we actually got more. We got about 45 minutes. And for this, we've really been enriched. We come away with a lot of good things from what you have shared with us. And it's been a great learning experience for us this morning. I say very big thank you, Dim. Thank you so very much.